President Brandon is admitting defeat when it comes to the battle against COVID. In this video, we're going to take a look at his latest admission. We're going to see how stunned and shocked the mainstream media is in all of this. And stick me to the very end of this video and I'll reveal how Biden is admitting a whole lot more, especially when it comes to 2024. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone, patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve here with you, coming to you from beautiful but crisp Connecticut as I spend the Christmas holidays with my family up here. But I did want to comment on a stunning admission coming from the Brandon regime. Let's go. Brandon has indeed basically admitted defeat in the White House's battle against COVID, which is huge beyond any measure. Speaking to the nation's governors by phone just the other day, Biden admitted that in the end, the Republican governors were right, that there is simply no one-size-fits-all federal approach to control and mitigate the spread of COVID. Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson, who's actually a rather pathetic rhino, nevertheless pushed Biden on this point, saying that Brandon needed to watch out that any federal policies from above, as it were, didn't get in the way of the initiatives of state governments trying to combat COVID based on the uniqueness of their own state situation. And Biden agreed, and he bluntly said, quote, "There is no federal solution. This gets solved at the state level." Now, I know Brandon's not particularly known for his choice of words, but what he said there bears repeating. There is no federal solution. This COVID crisis gets solved at the state and local levels. There is no federal solution. And just in case anyone wasn't listening, which tends to be the case whenever Brandon opens his mouth, Politico basically pointed out this isn't the first time he acknowledged this. Just last week, Brandon admitted that nothing has been good enough when it comes to federal efforts at supplying adequate amounts of at-home test kits. As many of you know, part of the shortages that we're facing and the ongoing Venezuelification of our supply chains is a mass shortage in testing kits. And Biden admitted last week that the federal government dropped the ball on that one. So here you've got two admissions, not one, but two admissions that the federal government is not providing any solution to this, which of course is nothing new for the vast majority of us who've always recognized that this is a state and local issue, not a federal one. Now, obviously, this was a stunning admission, and it certainly took the mainstream media by total surprise, even the left-wing activists over at CNN, who are basically, they've been doing everything they possibly can to restore some semblance of credibility in their ongoing perversion implosion. But even CNN is admitting that the gap between Biden's COVID's rhetoric and the COVID reality that we're all facing simply couldn't be wider. He has indeed failed to provide the solutions he promised. It's really that simple, or better, we need to say Biden failed to provide the solutions that the mainstream media like CNN promised. The mainstream media, after all, was the official communication wing of the Biden campaign. They openly campaigned for him, and CNN continues to do so. There's not a day that goes by that they don't blame the current collapse of society on President Trump, whether we're talking about Afghanistan, I kid you not, or the crisis at the border, or inflation, or the supply chain shortages, or COVID. The mainstream media does everything they possibly can to shift the blame to Trump. But of course, it's not working. The latest Morning Consult Political poll found that far more voters want to see Trump run again in 2024 than Biden. Only 18% of nearly 2,000 registered voters want to see Biden run again. I mean, Brandon's poll numbers simply could not be worse. You probably heard about this. Brandon is polling worse than Jimmy Carter at this time in his presidency. I mean, how much worse can it get than that when you're polling worse than the fellow who only got 4 states back in his re-election in 1980, his re-election attempt? I mean, it doesn't get worse. And so even with the entire mainstream media establishment doing everything they possibly can to prop this political corpse up in a bizarre ongoing Weekend at Brandon's saga, even with 24/7 round-the-clock corporate media propaganda working on his behalf, Brandon is basically admitting defeat. And gang, it goes way beyond COVID. Again, you probably saw this. Biden himself was already qualifying his re-election He's already saying that running for re-election will be dependent on his health in the next couple of years. Again, just to drive this home. Remember, just a couple of weeks back, the mainstream media was cheerleading the doctor's report that declared Biden perfectly healthy and full of energy. Do you remember that? He's a fully healthy and energetic 79-year-old. Forget the fact that he can't utter a coherent sentence. You know, you conspiracy theorists, you and all that. So according to the mainstream media, Biden's more fit than Michael Phelps. And almost on cue, Biden turns around and it says his re-election bid is dependent on what? The state of his health. So which is it? Well, we all know the answer to that. So Biden is admitting defeat here in more ways than one. He's basically admitting that this is it. He's one and done. And a number of Democrats are going to have to Game of Thrones their way to the Democratic nomination in 2024. And so the obvious question in all of this is, what does all this mean for the ongoing federal mandates on COVID? And I gotta say, I think when all is said and done, it really looks like Biden is admitting defeat on that one as well. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, of course, blocked Biden's vaccine mandates for private businesses. That is a permanent ban unless the Supreme Court were to overturn it, which looks increasingly unlikely. Then, of course, you had the United States Senate embarrassing Biden by repealing his federal vaccine mandate for private businesses at the federal legislative level, which included 2 Democratic senators defecting. And all this contributed Biden basically admitting that the federal government would not be enforcing its own mandate on businesses. This was especially the case given the number of red states that have risen up and already told him we're banning vaccine mandates on businesses. So it's no surprise Biden is just admitting defeat here. And it really does look like this is the beginning of the end of the vax mandates, at least at the federal level. I mean, this is not going to help you if you're living in deep blue states like California and New York, where you still have to deal with the little would-be dictators that run those states. But for the vast majority of the nation, particularly all the red states, Biden's retreat is a welcome development indeed. All right, gang, now before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on the funniest woke fails ever for 2021. It's a year-end compilation. It's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.